Hey everybody, welcome to the back room. I'm Andy Ostroy. Very excited today. We have actor Michelle Williams going to be talking with us about her new film Showing Up and a lot of other stuff. But first, there's this.
Well, first let me say I'm taken aback at the idea of indicting a former president of the United States. At a time when there's a crime wave in New York City, that the fact that the Manhattan DA thinks that indicting President Trump is his top priority, I think, just tells you everything you need to know about the radical left in this country. It just feels like a politically charged prosecution here. And I, for my part, I just feel like it's just not what the American people want to see.
That is Mike Pence. He was talking to ABC over the weekend, and you can hear him struggling. He's just struggling to find a way to sound more pathetically cowardly. And I think he achieved his goal. There's just so much wrong with that little soundbite. First of all, that little quote there tells you everything you need to know about Mike Pence, that he is just completely spineless. This is a guy who his former boss, Trump, literally called for him to be hung outside the Capitol a little more than 2 years ago on January 6th. At the insurrection. This is a guy who admitted that not only was his life in danger, but the lives of his family members were threatened and in danger as well. I don't know what to make of Mike Pence, because he's all over the place. You know, he talks about how Trump had no right to do anything he did on January 6th, that it was, you know, irresponsible and reckless to call for the election to be overturned, and he didn't have the power to do it, and Trump was, you know, out of bounds and blah, blah, blah. My life was in danger. My family's life was in danger, blah, 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 blah. And then he sits there this weekend and basically gives Trump a blowjob on ABC.
Well, that was so 2021, Andy. I mean, let's get with the times here.
He desperately wants the Trump base, and there's no discussion of Trump's behavior. It goes straight to outrage. We're outraged about what? I mean, nothing about what Trump actually did.
It's, I mean, and then, you know, saying that, you know, the new talking point, of course, is that, you know, it's Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's, you know, top priority. I don't know, maybe I just wasn't clued in, but like, did Alvin Bragg send Mike Pence a list of his top prosecutorial priorities?
I don't recall that being released to the public, at least.
Yeah.
Maybe they have an inside track.
Yeah, I think we would have seen that if it was released.
I think so, too.
Because then we're like, number one right there would have been like the Trump misdemeanor investigation.
And what does Mike Pence think should be the top priority?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to figure out Mike Pence. You know, he constantly says the American people. You know what the fucking American people want to see, Mike Pence? They want to see you have a spine. They want to see you be a man. Be a man.
He actually thinks he could actually run for president and win. That tells you how connected he is with the American people.
You know, say what you want about Donald Trump. Go ahead. I'm teeing up people like, what are you going to say now? Seriously, say what you want about Donald Trump, but he projects strength. He projects that kind of charismatic, strong man. At the same time, he also projects being a chump and a fucking whiny toddler, which is really who he is. But to his base, to many in the Republican Party, he does project strength. He talks big. He talks tough. Forget what's on the inside. That's what he projects. Mike Pence projects wimp, coward. Like does he really think this is a winning strategy? To sit there and go, yes, you know, the American people want to see the man who tried to hang me. It's just so unjust what's happening to him. I have to say it's so unjust, so terrible.
I mean, he thinks he can be president, and that's pretty clearly not going to happen. He's polling, you know, in single digits by any measure. Who's going to vote for him? Nobody who supports Trump.
What does he stand for?
I mean, basically, that's a good question.
We know what he bends over for, but what does he actually stand for? So, also on the weekend, Donald Trump put out a Truth Social post, which drove everybody crazy. It was all caps. It was early morning. It was like a classic Trump toilet rant, basically saying that, you know, Alvin Bragg his office is leaking about the investigation. and that he's gonna be arrested on Tuesday, which is tomorrow. We're recording this on Monday. And he also then called for his supporters, surprise, to mobilize in New York and protest and take the country back. Doesn't that sound eerily familiar to J6? Be there. It's gonna be wild. So here he is again, literally inciting violence. Yet again, despite everything that's happened in the last 2 years, he just doesn't give a flying fuck. And you know what? Why should he? Because he's still allowed to do this 2 years later, over 2 years later.
Yeah, and everyone is extremely concerned for good reason. You have the Christian nationalist out on Twitter talking about that this is during Lent, and then Trump is just like Jesus, where they're going to crucify him, he's going to be resurrected. And it is off the charts crazy if you pick up a rock and look what's under the internet.
I'll tell you, this is goddamn awful what they're doing to Orange Jesus. If they do this to Orange Jesus tomorrow, there's going to be some bloodshed.
Unfortunately, there may well be.
I don't think there's going to be anything tomorrow. First of all, New York City cops are pretty fucking tough, and they know how to deal with this shit, in my opinion. Number two, I don't think anyone wants to go to jail for this fucker anymore. I really don't. I mean, I think they had a party on January 6th because they thought the big guy is in the White House and he's going to protect them. And then they saw that he stayed in the White House instead of marching to the Capitol with them. And he's a big-ass coward, did nothing for them, didn't save them. Almost 1,000 of them are being prosecuted. I think 700 or 800 are already in prison. He's going to be indicted. The Proud Boys are locked up. The Oath Keepers are locked up. Maybe, but you know what? I've always said this. All it takes is one person to do something really bad.
Yeah, I agree. I would be shocked if there wasn't.
That's three shocks.
That's what I'm saying. If there wasn't a new group of people who were willing to put their lives on the line for him.
I agree.
I'm gonna take the opposite position. I think they would just sit at home, pop open a can of beer, eat their Cheetos, watch him walking into court or the police station or wherever the hell he's going to be. Also this weekend, another ass kisser, Kevin McCarthy. Within seeming like minutes after Trump's erratic, batshit crazy Truth Social post, McCarthy starts defending him and then says, I've already directed various committees to look into and investigate whether the Manhattan DA's office is politicizing things and whether they're using government money to do that, blah, blah, blah. It's like these fuckers just created a committee to investigate the weaponization of the government and the Department of Justice. It's just, Freud would be like, you know what, guys, you guys are amazing. Like you took my projection and you fucking ran with it. You just, bravo, bravissimo on the projection. They literally do everything they accuse Democrats of doing.
It's so true.
Yeah, and so it's like, but this is the Speaker of the House, for God's sake.
It's over the top. But I'm waiting for Jim Jordan to roll up his sleeves and get to the bottom of this.
And those are nice sleeves. We see them all the time. Why? Because he's too fucking lazy and disrespectful to wear a goddamn jacket.
Oh, no, he makes a performance of taking it off.
Jesus Christ. And one day, psychologists are going to, have him in a room and just be like, all right, we're not leaving here until we get to the bottom of this no jacket thing. What the fuck is he doing with the no jacket thing? What is he trying to say?
He's a man of the people.
Jesus. People wear jackets.
No,
everybody wears a jacket.
It's a metaphor, rolling up your sleeves to get to the bottom. When he starts yelling, he can't have the jacket on.
Oh, God. And so here you have the Speaker of the House suggesting that he's going to allow Congress to intervene in the investigative work of a local prosecutorial entity like the Manhattan DA's office.
I'm so curious what happened to state rights. What happens?
Federalism doesn't matter when
rights?
it's, they just play both ends of that candle.
Well, he's queuing this up for Georgia. He'll do the same thing when Georgia indicts.
One has to hope that these entities like the Manhattan DA's office and New York State Attorney General's office, even though that's a civil case, Georgia, Fulton County, the federal investigations being led by Jack Smith into J6 and the Mar-a-Lago stolen documents. I mean, then when you throw in, the E. Jean Carroll rape case, civil case on rape, there's 6 major investigations and cases and lawsuits. It's like legal whack-a-mole with this guy.
It's a witch hunt.
That wasn't bad. It's a witch hunt. It's a witch hunt. So today, Robert, and then they put it in quotation marks, Robert Bob Costello. It's like, oh, Bob is a nickname for Robert? Thanks for telling us. We didn't know that. So Robert or Bob, whatever you want to call him, because they're so different. Let's call him Bob, because that just sounds friendlier. Bob Costello, who once was a legal advisor to Michael Cohen and also represented Steve Bannon and currently represents Rudy Giuliani in the Georgia Fulton County case. He's going into the grand jury today, Manhattan DA Alvin Bragg's grand jury. And he's going to present testimony that would contradict what Cohen has already testified to and said publicly about the Stormy Daniels hush money case. And then Michael Cohen is going in to, at the request of the DA's office, to be a rebuttal witness. So there's going to be this duking out today between Costello and Cohen. What it all means and where it goes is anybody's guess, but it is interesting.
We're going to see what he has to say, which, we're not going to see it, but he's basically going to say Michael's a liar, blah, blah, blah. That's what we can expect. And Michael will rebut. And then it'll be up to the jury to indict probably in the next day or two.
Yeah. It is indictment week. It's
according to the former president.
Well, he's supposed to be getting indicted, arrested. Yeah. So, which is bullshit already, because he's not going to get arrested because he's in Florida and they're in New York. But he's already. It's like he's going to be arrested tomorrow. But is JFK coming back tomorrow too? Is he also going to be reinstated as president? How many of these fucking deadlines have to pass before the MAGAs go, wait a second? None of these things have ever happened the way he's said they're going to happen, the way Q has said they're going to happen. Crazy. All right, so it'll be indictment week. Hopefully, maybe everyone on the left will get their dream this week to see this man arrested, fingerprinted, a mugshot. How awesome would that be?
This is a big question. Is Bragg going to do what he does with every other white-collar criminal, where he puts him in handcuffs and does the perp walk down the hallway that we saw Steve Bannon walk?
Yep, perp walk.
We hope.
Look, it's a no-win. Just like for Garland. These things are no-wins. Like if he does what you just said, the people on the left would be like, yes, we're not treating Trump differently. He gets fingerprinted and mugshotted and perp walked and all that. But then he's going to get it from the right. Oh, you're treating him differently because he's a former president. And if he doesn't do that, then the left is going to be upset. So it does, which is why, all these situations, whether it's him or Garland or Jordan, they just got to fucking do what they're supposed to do and follow the letter of the law, uphold the rule of law, and just prosecute people who should be prosecuted. Period.
Completely. I will say that I'm really looking forward to the mugshot, because that is going to happen no matter what. And that's going to break the internet.
It will fucking bust the internet. The internet is going to crash like we've never seen.
You're going to see Elon saying that Twitter crashed for some other reason.
We may dedicate a whole episode just to dissecting the mugshot.
Oh, it'll be great.
We'll get a cosmetic expert in to look at. All right, so that brings us to our guest, Michelle Williams. She is one of Hollywood's most respected actors. Her latest film, Showing Up, will be released in theaters April 7th, and is her 4th collaboration with writer-director Kelly Reichardt. Most recently, she starred in Steven Spielberg's The Fabelmans, great film for which she received her 5th Academy Award nomination, as well as a Golden Globe and a Critics' Choice nomination. Her other films include Marvel's Venom and the sequel, Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Also Manchester by the Sea, My Week with Marilyn, Blue Valentine, Brokeback Mountain, Wendy and Lucy, and many other critically acclaimed award-winning films. She's also won an Emmy for playing Gwen Verdon in FX's Fosse Verdon. And she's also a Tony-nominated actor who made her Broadway debut in Cabaret. Michelle, welcome into the back room.
Thanks for having me. I'm happy to be here.
You've been...
We finally get to see each other.
Yes.
Talk to each other.
It's been a while. Well, you've been like manufacturing children a lot lately.
It's true. It's true.
Y-
We've been busy.
You've got 3 kids now. Did you ever think you'd have 3 children?
I think I might have four.
Wow. Well, there we go. There's the news being made today.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
So we the other day I was doing some math because it's been a while, and I was thinking about how long we've known each other, and had to back up a couple of things, but it's been about 13 years, and we got to know each other because, as people know, my late wife, Adrienne Shelley, she died in November of 2006, and Heath Ledger, who you were involved with, although not at the time of his death, although you did have a child, Matilda, who was, I guess, around 2 at the time of his death.
Yeah, too.
Yeah, that was like January of '08. So it's like 13, 15 months apart. And the story, I was just sort of climbing out of my little hole and starting to feel, you know, like life might get back to some sort of,
Mhm.
normalcy at some point.
Mhm.
And then what happened with your family, it just sort of hit me in a way, our kids were this similar age. And so I wrote you a letter, and
Yeah.
I don't remember a lot of what was like what was in the letter, but I remember the gist of the letter. But do you
I do.
remember the letter? Well,
I remember the letter. I remember, first of all, I'm so amazed when I hear you say, that it was 14, 15 months apart because you managed to reach out to me, even though it was still so fresh. That takes a lot of, I mean, do you remember how long it took me to write you back?
yes, I do. Yeah, I
Um,
do. It was a strange moment.
yeah. So, when I remember so well when I got your letter, because this is going to sound so strange, but this is really going to sound bizarre, but yeah, I think I know you understand, and I think anyone listening who's experienced grief in this way will also understand. When I got your letter, I wanted to eat it. It promised me that things would get better. It promised me that my daughter would laugh and smile, and it felt so precious to me to read those words that I wanted to do something to keep them safe. And I did not eat the letter, but instead I pinned it up in our pantry. I pinned up the letter and the picture. You sent me a picture of your daughter smiling on a beach, and it was like sunshine. I pinned it there to remind myself that this man, this stranger, had promised that things would get better. And it was like a little like corner of sunshine in very dark days. And it took me a long time to write you back, which I felt so badly about because you had no idea that this letter had arrived and affected me in such a profound way. But it took me a long time to get my bearings. It took me a long time to figure out how to say thank you, exactly which words to use. It was about 2 years.
Yeah. No, it's interesting because over the last 17 years now, since Adrienne has died, I've become friends with a lot of people. I call them my tragedy buddies. And they are everyone from well known people to just people, everyday people who get up and go to normal jobs every day, and everyone in between. And so I often, I could sit and watch Dateline and see something that's just tragic and horrifying, and I'll reach out to people. Sometimes I get a response, sometimes I don't. So it wasn't like I was looking for a response. It's just, I felt so horrible when Adrienne died that I needed to sort of let people know that no matter how dark you think it is, like those are your darkest days. They do get lighter. And because that sort of made the tragedy bearable on some level, if I could share that sort of
Mhm.
trajectory, because people had done that for me. There was one guy whose son hung himself when he was 14 years old,
And
and
he reached out to
and
you.
he came to me when Adrienne died. This was years later
Mhm.
after his son did that, and he just laid out like a roadmap of what's going to happen and how I'll feel and blah blah blah, and it was all true, and so he understood. But so I didn't expect anything because oftentimes I don't, and I don't write things to get a response. But I remember going in my mailbox. It was 2 years later, and there was a handwritten letter. I had written you a handwritten letter, and it had an upstate New York address. And I was like, what is this? And I'm very political, so like I'm always a little leery of like people sending me things because sometimes they send me things that aren't really cool. And it said photo, inside. And you had sent me back a photo of Matilda smiling and happy, and it was just it was just one of those things that when I look back on the moments in life that truly suck, it's moments like that help to make them suck less. So
Everything that you promised me came true. And I just have to say, like, I admire the reach out so much because that can be really difficult. When you're in the depths of despair, it's pretty hard to extend yourself. And you did that.
mm-hmm. Well,
You
interestingly, it
found
was at a time when I did feel like life is going to suck, but it's not going to suck the way I thought it was going to suck like a week after Adrian died. So it was like that moment hopefully will come for you as well, where, yeah, this is your new truth and your new reality, but it's not going to be the way you feel it is right now. And that was so important when people said that to me, that, because when you're in the throes of it, you need that kind of ability to sort of see beyond what's right in front of you, because what's right in front of you is just awful. But anyway, to make a long story short, I'm glad that somehow this crazy tragedy mess had brought us together, and that we got to know each other and be in each other's lives. And because you're a pretty
so
cool,
am I, and I'm
pretty cool
grateful
person.
for any opportunity to like tell you again. You never know, right? Like how profoundly you can affect somebody. And that letter and that photo was light in the darkness for 2 years for me. I really clung to what you said. I believed what you said, and it got me through. So,
well, the world needs more of that.
Practice
for sure.
Andy's reach out because you never know.
Yeah, and it was cool that
we
we wrote handwritten letters. Who does that anymore?
I know.
So you've had a busy, you've been busy. You just came off the Oscars, The Fabelmans, great movie, 5th Oscar nomination. I watched 2 of your movies last week. I watched The Fabelmans and I watched Showing Up.
Showing Up,
which
yep.
what we're going to talk about. And they're both so different, yet, I say this as a member of the tribe, you played a pretty good Jew. I got to say, that was when you first set out to do that, was that like, how am I going to play a Jew?
I have wanted pretty much my whole conscious life to be Jewish. I lived in between 2 Jewish families. When we lived in San Diego, I lived in between 2 Jewish families, and who had girls my age. So I spent a lot of time with them, and I was so entranced by as opposed to at my house where religion looked like a Christmas tree, this like mystery and wonder and heritage and music and questioning it. I was over at their houses for holidays constantly. So it really spoke to me. And so this was a real dream come true.
And this may sound like a dumb question, but I've been known to throw out a few of those. Did you I know that actors, they have dialect coaches, they have this coach, that coach. Like, did you have like a Jew coach?
I did not. No, I mean, the film was written by Steven Spielberg and Tony Kushner, so
they were your Jew coaches.
Yes, I had a couple of leading experts in the field.
Yeah. And your husband is Jewish, right?
My husband is Jewish, yeah.
So you had a lot of Jews around you telling you how to be a Jew.
2 little boys are half Jewish. Yeah, so it is actually something that it's the way I want to raise my kids. I really love having something that's like a belief system that can be foundational, unifying, mark time in special ways. So it's something that we're going to raise our little guys with.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of little people, I did a little homework on you. That's part of the job. I have to do some homework. Mm-hmm. And so I found out a few things about your childhood that I didn't know about. Like, you were emancipated at 15.
I was.
You went out to LA by yourself.
How crazy is
You had
that?
your
I
own
cannot
place when you
believe
were
that
like
was me.
16, 15, 16 years old.
I know. I can't believe that that was the same body that I still live in, you know?
That's an incredible story. Like you had your own apartment in another state, far away from
It's
home at
imagined, isn't it? Yeah.
15 years old.
At 15, I look at my 17-and-a-half-year-old daughter now and I think like absolutely no way
Yeah, I look at my
would
19-year-old daughter
she
and
be
it's
living
like, can you
independently, you
please
know?
go to your dorm room? We're paying for it.
Yeah, it's a really strange thing. It's funny. It like I said, I can't believe that was me. It feels like so many lifetimes ago I don't even recognize the person that happened to. But I guess it did. I have so few, I have like like photographs of memories of it. But then I moved I got emancipated when I was 15 and moved to Los Angeles. And then by the time I was 16, I got the TV show Dawson's Creek. So I moved
Right.
out to North Carolina. And I always feel so super grateful that I was transported out of Los Angeles and into like a sleepy southern beach town because I think that it allowed for a safer semi-childhood like experience. The
Mm-hmm.
crew was really protective of us. It was obviously like pre-internet, pre-cell phone, so we were allowed to kind of bump into walls and make some mistakes without the consequences being too hugely broadcast through the universe.
Mm-hmm.
And so I feel like in some ways that really saved me. And
Yeah.
I had a job to go to. We worked extremely long hours. We had lots of dialogue to memorize. Things were expected of us. It you know, focused my youth
Mm-hmm.
on a professional life.
It's interesting you say that because my friend Hillary Burton has a similar experience when she worked on One Tree Hill. It was also, I think, maybe filmed in North Carolina or
Same
some.
place, yeah.
Yeah,
We were all Wilmingtonians.
yeah. I want to ask you a question about the Oscars. There's a lot of people who, I mean, it's great when you get recognized for the work you do, especially by peers. But then there's also a lot of people who feel like, it's not a competition, and how could you pick the best? So many roles are so different, and the
Yeah.
movies are so different. Where do you land on that, having been through that machinery for so long?
Well, I mean, the two things are connected, right? Like I left home when I was very young, and um, I've been acting since I was 12, and I auditioned for 2 years before I ever got a single job. Like my trajectory was not straightforward and it was not straight up.
Mm-hmm.
So um, it took me a really long time to be able to make the kind of work that I wanted to. It took me a really long time to be able inside of myself to make the work that I wanted to. There's like the desire for the thing, and then there's the ability to do the thing.
Mm-hmm.
And both of those things took me long, painful years. So to find myself in a place where I've been invited to the Oscars 5 times, it will never feel to me like anything other than a miracle. And I
Mm-hmm.
will ultimately be nothing but entirely grateful.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I feel. That's like the baseline of how I feel. And then the thing that I try to retain when I'm inside of that room is these are all people who we love to do the same thing. So we have so much in common already. We have an abiding love for this uh, creative endeavor. So we have the basis for so much friendship.
Mm-hmm.
And I do find that I enjoy all of the conversations with the other actors that I have, and I don't feel between each other that sense of competition is present. I think it can like feel like that from the outside, but that's not really how the conversation flows.
Mm-hmm.
It's much more, yeah, it's warm and sharing and connected.
Mm-hmm. And is it true that your first agent was an undertaker?
Yes. So
Did
again,
you know
like
that
that's
going?
where
Did you know that when you first started with him or her?
Yeah, I think that was a known fact. That was
That's an
that was like the
interesting
family business.
side
And then,
job.
yeah, so like I said, I'm very lucky to be sitting where I am today.
I love that. I love that story. And so, do you feel, in terms of like the whole dues paying thing, because you got. I mean, Adrian was very similar with it with her Hal Hartley films,
Yes,
um,
exactly.
and we used to joke about that. But like, I mean, there are actors that struggle for so long, and some, don't get a break. But if they do get a break, it comes after this long struggle. And like you said, you went out to LA at 15, at 16, you were on a hit show that set you off on this amazing career. Um, it's not usual that that happens, right?
No, it's the chances are so slim, which is what I think kind of puts people off from becoming actors because it feels like, am I really going to be able to do this thing that I love? Um, but for me it took, because I started when I was 12, but to do the kind of work, I really wanted to work in independent cinema. I mean, that was my goal for
Mm-hmm.
myself, was to make a home in independent cinema. And that took me a long time. I was probably what, like 23 when I did The Station Agent, 24 when I did Brokeback Mountain. So that's a decade
Mm.
of
Wow.
not being able to do the kind of work that I wanted to, and then finally making some progress and finally like getting those roles that I really, really wanted. So people have said, like, if you want to act, you really have to be unable to imagine yourself doing anything else
Mm-hmm.
because the rejection is so annihilating and really damaging to your sense of self.
Self-worth.
Yeah.
How do you deal? Do you have like a strategy, a process for, I mean, not now, of course, but back then, to get through that rejection? Like, do you just have to, like a horse, put blinders on and know where the end is supposed to be and just be so determined and resilient and not, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if I could take that kind of, rejection unless it came from my family and there was a lot of that growing up. But outside of that,
Exactly.
yeah, I mean,
Exactly. Well, look, they gave you some practice.
oh, I got plenty of
I
practice.
I I think you do have to have this strange combination of like a thick skin, but an internal sensitivity, but an ability to kind of wrap it in something more solid.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I think for me, because I I stopped attending any kind of formal education when I was very young, 15. I left home, I got emancipated. It really narrowed my options. So if I was going to have a life, a, a career, a home, this was the only thing that I could do.
Mm.
So I had to develop an ability to focus on the thing that I loved to do. And like you said, kind of put blinders on, because if I let all of that in, what would happen to me?
Right.
I
Right.
would be left without a skill set.
Right. Well, you have to be, I guess you have to start out with some kind of strength and confidence and, a goal that is just, you can't waver from. And it sounds like that's what you had. So speaking of independent film, you have a film showing up, coming out April 7th. It's your fourth collaboration with Kelly Reichardt. You've worked with her many times. Meek's Cut Off, Certain Women, Wendy and Lucy. Explain why why that collaboration continues, what the secret sauce is, why that's so important and fulfilling to you and her.
Yeah, we're 15 years into our working relationship. We've made four movies. She's made other movies, of course, without me in that time span, but we made four movies in 15 years,
Do you
which,
ever go like, why am I not in that one?
I mean,
Why
yeah.
am I not in all her movies?
She it's such a special thing that's happened to us. The first movie that we made together, Wendy and Lucy, we were talking about this the other day, was a crew of 13 people. I don't even know uh, who's making movies like that anymore. Such a special time, super intimate, super bonded, because we, the production isn't spread out. There's no trailers. Nobody's like, there's no separate environments to wait in while you're getting ready for action and cut. So you are together in the elements. There was no trailer.
Mm-hmm.
So we're, rain or shine, we're kind of all huddled together, carrying our own apple boxes around,
Mm-hmm.
chatting it up. And we made this thing, which again, like this Wendy and Lucy to me was the culmination, was the like most perfect shining example of the work that I dreamed of making and still desire to make. It doesn't get to me better than that. And then we made this movie that people responded to, and the understanding of her as one of our great living filmmakers keeps expanding. And so to see this happen to this woman, friend, collaborator, has given my work such meaning. To have been a major contributor to her cinematic body of work, I think, is the thing that I will be most proud of. I mean, I say this not to be morbid, but like I am, but I say this to her, like it's going to be the headline of my obit. I figured in the Kelly Reichardt body of work. And so I feel like just kind of amazed that this thing has happened to us, against all odds, that these micro budget indie movies that we make have become seen as, important in not just the American indie film landscape, but internationally. She's like a superhero in France. They give her awards at Cannes and have a day dedicated to her.
Yeah, well, it's it seems like you're really fortunate to be in the position where you can do big budget films, take home a nice paycheck, so that you can get to do these kinds of films, which is, I would think, a unique position to be in. And it's an unfortunate, I mean, independent film was never a place that, was popular outside of a small nucleus of people. And then certainly the money never flowed in. But today it's even harder to get a film made. I still don't, I've been involved in a couple of films. I don't know how people do it today. It's just, and it's so important that there are filmmakers like Kelly that or Adrian. I mean, Adrian made Waitress in 18 days, and year after she died, I produced a script she wrote called Serious Moonlight, and we shot it in 15 days. Like, I mean, to do that today.
Yes.
And
exactly.
Meg Ryan was in that film, Serious Moonlight, and she was like, 15 days? This is never going to happen. And then when we wrapped, she was like, my God, we did it. And so I read a quote that you said, Kelly and I fight. That's not something that I do with anybody else that I work with, but we love each other enough to do that. We're in a marriage, and in a long relationship, you're going to have differences of opinion. I mean, of course, that sounds like kind of like duh, right? But I think people wouldn't think that, right? But you have such a symbiotic, close, intimate relationship that it is like a marriage.
Yeah, I think that we know that, we've proven that to each other over 15 years and 4 films. Like, we're not going anywhere. And I will always say yes when she calls me, and she seems to continue to want to call me. So there's a kind of safety of it's unbreakable at this point. We've been through so many different kinds of experiences together, and we feel safe enough to fight. We don't fight the entire time. I mean, I'm, aside from being one of her collaborators, I'm also her biggest fan. So when she tells me, I always try to figure out how to do how to be the thing that she sees in her mind. Mm-hmm. And so like, I will try anything that she wants me to. We've just come to a couple of sticking points where we are on opposite sides, but then we come together, and There's a lot of love, but yeah, I never really fight with anybody, but
What was it about Lizzie's the character of Lizzie that you loved?
I think what I loved thinking about was these things. So the movie is really about how do you just sit down at your table and start making your work, whatever it is that you apply yourself to, how hard it is to just begin, let alone then create. And these things that happen in our days, are they that seem like perhaps they take us away from a creative process? Are they in fact part of the creative process? Are they happening to us, or are we creating them?
Mm-hmm.
And how so much of art making is life making first. It's, arguing with your friends, it's sitting down at the bar, it's going on a walk, and that maybe it's all a creative process.
She's such an interesting character because she's so like dark and dour and sad and lonely, controlled, so bottled up, but yet immensely likable and rootable. You can root for her. And I remember Adrienne once said to me, like, as a filmmaker, as a writer, she always tries to write characters, even the bad ones, that you can root for. Because if you don't root for them, then it's just like a one-dimensional character, And so this character that we shouldn't really like Lizzie all that much, but we do,
Good. I'm glad you like her. I like her too. But I think that you see this person who is the product of her environment, the product of these two parents, one for whom she just can't do anything right and doesn't get any approval and is passed over for the brother who, why? Why does the mother, despite the brother's, continuous
fucking up?
Yeah. The mom just can't acknowledge what Lizzie does, while perfectly able to acknowledge what her brother does.
Because the brother needs the mother in a way that Lizzie
Right.
doesn't.
In a way that Lizzie doesn't. So the squeaky wheel gets the grip. So I think, ultimately, I kind of think it's a movie, but also about like parents and children, which is actually very much like the Fabelmans, and about how, frustrating is it, for, I think in Lizzie's case, like I think her parents feel, especially her mother, frustrated that she can't make Lizzie who she wants her to be. And that your art is actually a place where you can really go to be free, and that you can make things the way that you want them to be. You can build up your skill set, you can become proficient in something, and you can have a certain amount of control in how it turns out. You have to leave the door open for mystery and accident, which the film also talks about, in the way that, when Lizzie puts her sculpture, she's a sculptor, when she puts the sculptures into the kiln, there's a certain amount of, there's an unknown. And when something turns out not quite the way that she wanted it to, she has to sort of reckon with, like, does this thing still have value? Do I still like this? Is it beautiful, or is it ugly? Or does it walk a line that's challenging and exciting? So I think I find that really moving, that, art is a place where you can go to work out these ideas, to work against these ideas, and to really find some liberation.
Mm-hmm. Did you want to play her as a Jew? That's a joke.
Well, do you think I did play her as a Jew?
Well, dark and dour part perhaps reminded me of some elderly Jews in my family.
Judd Hirsch is my father in this movie and showing up. He was my uncle in the Fabelmans.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, is that like a thing now that you have to work with Judd Hirsch from now on in every movie?
We're looking for our next project, just putting it out there. We're looking for something vaudevillian. He wants to sing and dance.
How about Taxi, the movie?
Taxi, the movie, just saying.
There you go. In our remaining moments, I want to ask you a couple of questions. I have a foundation, the Adrienne Shelly Foundation, which supports women filmmakers, which obviously is a subject that's very important to both of us. Getting back to the Oscars, like, isn't it amazing that they still can't, this year they couldn't find a woman director nominee?
It's senseless.
After all the hoopla, and it's astounding to me that we in
Especially when you
2023
have,
don't have
yeah.
a nominee that's a woman.
Um, I was so excited to see my friend Sarah Polly
Hmm.
win for screenplay because I thought that movie was just a staggering achievement. And it's, without sense that she wasn't
Right,
nominated for directing work.
right. How does that
Um,
happen where you can write a
but look, like
movie?
we're having the conversation. Like change is slow and then it goes forwards and then it goes backwards
Yeah,
and then it gets scrambled. But we weren't having this conversation 10 years ago.
right. No, I mean, look, my foundation, we gave Chloe Zhao a grant in 2012 when she was still making short films. So we were thrilled
Wow.
when she won. But it is. I guess you're right. It's one of those, like, it's change is slow, but it change is there. But it just, when it's not fast enough, it's just so infuriating to see a woman write a script that could be nominated, a movie that she directed be nominated, but somehow the director herself isn't nominated.
Isn't
So yeah,
But how incredible, like that you guys gave her a grant back in 2012. I mean, you have been doing, it must feel because you have been doing the good work for a long time. So I'm sure it feels, because you're really applying yourself to it, and it's just like it feels like it's getting nudged and not shoved. So I understand and I feel the frustration myself.
and by the way, you've
But
been very generously supportive and helpful in that foundation. You've been involved
I'm
with
here
me on
for
that,
you.
so I do
I'm here for
appreciate
you
that.
till the end. So let's keep going. But I'm excited. I love these kids so much. These like teens that are coming up. I feel like when they're old enough to kind of be in positions of power, I, I feel like good things are ahead.
Hmm. The last thing I wanted to, it's not necessarily a question, but I did read a quote. It was many years ago, and you said, "I want to be happy." And so now you're married. Your husband is a very successful. I mean, I didn't know this until I did some homework, that he directed Hamilton.
He did, yeah, yeah.
That's pretty big, and other
Mhm.
stuff. And he's a Tony Award winner. And you have a son who's 2 years old, Hart. You have a newborn who's a few months old, and Matilda is 16. And you seem happy, and that's important to me because I've known you when you weren't very happy, and so
Yeah,
it's nice to see you happy.
it's so nice to be happy. It's so nice to feel happy. It's so nice to breathe happy. Like it's the air in our house.
Hmm.
My daughter's off school this week, and um, we were just in our bedroom and playing with the baby, and um, yeah, I got like struck with the happiness stick, and it was such a long time, when people, when I talk about grief now, I talk to people who are grieving. I think that if I would like to expand the time frame that people put on it because I think it's compounded too when children are involved, right? Because there's your grief, there's their grief, there's your grief for them.
Hmm.
And I would say like it wasn't a bad year or two, like it was a bad decade. It's a
Hmm.
hard decade. It
Hmm.
takes a long time to turn things around. And it's incremental, right? Like it does get better. Like the waves come less frequently. When they hit, they still crash, but they
Hmm.
come less frequently.
Yeah, no, it's like being in the ocean. It's like you stand up and you're like, oh, and then boom, it's like it knocks you on your ass again, and you're like, I didn't see that coming, and then all of a sudden it's the same thing, and then you start to realize, like, all right, this is what I got to roll with. I can stand up for a while and things are good, and then it's gonna crash, and then maybe the sea water just evens out after a while. You know.
I think like an upside of it though is if we have to look for upsides because we want to survive, because that's what the people who aren't here anymore would want for us, is that like grief really hollows you out. And but in that is an ability to contain more joy. And I felt like that so much that I felt like I was being hollowed out to the point where there wasn't going to be anything left of me. And the grief just feels so enormous, but it has enlarged your capacity for feeling. And when joy comes back into the room, when happiness comes back into the room, you feel those things so much more profoundly than before because you've lived in their absence for so long. So I think it expands the container, and the happiness that I can feel now, maybe I wouldn't have been able to experience to this level, and to experience gratitude. I think, like, do you feel that too? Like the gratitude for what remains and the gratitude for the connections that you find is just so immense.
Yeah, no, it's very beautiful the way you put all that. And I'm still trying to find my container the way I want it. And it's been, 17 years. The thing I want to end with is another quote. And I'm sure, like, when I talk to people, they're like, oh my God, what did he dig up this time? Like, but it's
yeah, I know. I'm like, oh, what embarrassing thing did I say when I was younger?
I was younger. Like, okay.
Yeah.
But it might choke me up when I say it, because when I read it, it just like hit me so hard. But you were talking about the loss of Heath and Matilda, and you say, and this is a quote, his family and I watch Matilda as she whispers to trees, hugs animals, and takes steps 2 at a time, and we know that he is with us still. I mean, it was like an hour of composure before I was able to function again after I read that, because it spoke to me. It just spoke to me, because every day I go through that same emotion with Sophie. And I mean, just the other day I was in the car with her, and I looked at her and I was like, my God, you are your mother right now. And it's shocking the way she looks, the way she acts, the way she talks. But I'm a little weepy right now, but it's a happy weepy, because my God, like, what if this fucking kid looked just like me and acted just like me, right? Like, and we had nothing left of Adrian, right? I am so lucky, and Adrian's family is so lucky, and we're all so lucky that we have this kid who we know she is still with us, because all we got to do is just look at her and listen to her. What a beautiful thing that you said, which really is what it's all about when people leave us and leave behind parts of them.
I'm glad that you found that. I do feel, there's this line in this poem that I remember from that time, and my favorite poet, this guy Galway Kinnell, and he says, only the flesh dies, the spirit lingers without stop.
Yeah.
And we can see that. Oh my God.
I'm like Robert Walters over here.
Hey. I know, what is it? And we get to see that in our girls.
Yeah. Well,
and the things that they possess of their parents that they didn't get to learn by watching them, but were passed on to them. Yeah, and we get to sit back and watch.
Yeah. No, it's a beautiful thing. Michelle, thank you so much for doing this. This is such a favorite chat of mine.
It's utterly my pleasure, and let's do it again, and also get coffee.
Yes, for sure. Good luck with the film. It comes out, everybody, April 7th. It's a truly enjoyable film, and it's just another way to see Michelle do what she does so well. So good luck with it, and hope to see you soon.
Thanks for having me, Andy.
All right.
See you soon.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Well, that's episode 53. If you like what you've been hearing, and even if you don't, let us know. We appreciate the feedback. You can leave us a message at 845-307-7446, email us at backroomandy@gmail.com, or tweet to me at Andy Ostroy. And when you listen, please take a quick moment to rate and review. It's very helpful. I want to thank my co-producer, engineer, and editor, Maddie Rosenberg, associate producer, Jen Hammoud, Cricket Langell for our artwork, Andy Hollander for our kick-ass music, Patricia Wind and the Epicurean for the backroom studio, and a big thank you again to our awesome guest, Michelle Williams. So keep your eyes on Washington, Hollywood, and your own backyards, and we hope you'll join us again next time. Have a great week.